What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a free episode of the Infinity Edge podcast. Can I get confirmation that this is a free episode?
It is Thursday, so I assume yes.
I think so.
All right. Well, the other assumption I'll have to make is that the Infinity Edge promo code IEDGE, IEDGE, is still working and gives you a percentage discount when you sign up for the esportsdepartment.com and use the code IEDGEIEDGE. But I can't verify that. I have not checked that myself, so you're gonna have to depend on the other nice people that are involved in this production for that information.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know why you're being coded about the percentage. It is indeed 10%, and
yeah, well, I don't know. I haven't heard whether it's 10 or 20.
it's a great
One of these
deal.
days, it's going to be 20 again.
I had a
Uh,
joke coming on that today's my 31st birthday and they could just bug John for 31% off for today only, but
Ooh,
I don't think that one would really fly, but hey, give it a shot.
Yeah, worth asking.
you
Anyway,
you are almost exactly a year older than me, Ghost. So you are.
Oh man.
We have settled it. You are indeed Alan number one. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
well, now that we got that out of the way, we have some League of Legends to get into. We have the LEC and the LCS. I feel like last week we were pretty good in terms of what we were talking about, even though it was like a couple days in advance, because there are only so many ways these games can go. But we'll hopefully carry that over into another good performance this week. Let's do the LEC first.
Sounds good. Yeah, looking at pricing so far, we have G2, Mad, Rogue, Fnatic, all these teams that everyone loves to play are up there, but maybe you guys can help figure out pricing and see where we land. But our first game of the slate is going to be SK 0-3 versus Schalke 04 1-2. Alan, take us away with this one. What do you think about this matchup?
Ooh, the LEC has finally learned from the ways of the LCS. Put one of your worst games in the prime spots. This one is going to be the everybody sleeps in game and doesn't want either of these teams, and I think it's going to be a pretty solid DFS game. The only concern is that these two teams have not played like particularly bloody games so far, but one of them has to win, right? And at that point, they fit really well with other teams that you're going to want to play. And so I really don't know who's going to win here. I think that these two teams had the worst two off seasons. I would lean towards Schalke, and we'll probably play a little bit more Schalke lineups. Like I'll probably play like 10% SK and 20% Schalke or something like that. But it's a pretty toss up kind of game. I do think that like if you really looked at the talent matchup for matchup, you're probably gonna end up on the Schalke side of things. But I don't think either of these teams is very good. But that makes it a great DFS game because nobody likes to play bad teams. And so I think I'll play both sides and probably end up with more Schalke than SK.
All right, Michael, we'll move on over to you. Schalke versus SK. Who do you like here, and what are you doing with it in DFS terms?
So I would play Schalke, but I would not play SK Gaming. I think that SK Gaming is very bad. I also hate them. They're the worst, and they got rid of Tinks. So if they lost every single game until they were forced to withdraw from the LEC, I'd be okay with that outcome. I would not mind. I think that Broken Blade against Gen X is a good player. I don't think that Broken Blade will necessarily be able to destroy the lane and like get a huge carry performance off. But it's kind of always in the range of outcomes when Broken Blade is playing. It's just nothing in the matchup specifically with Gen X that like increases that percent chance of happening. Cure, I'm not a huge fan. Treats, you're not a jungler. Some people can make that transition, other people can't. Do I think that Treats has looked lost? No, but they're on a bad team, and it just exacerbates the problem when you have someone who's less experienced in the jungle role playing on a team that isn't going to get advantages in the lanes themselves. It's just a really not a good situation. Nuclear in and 2 hours, I think they call him on the broadcast, even though there's a Y in there. I don't think there's a huge difference between those two players. Neon and Limit, I like considerably more than Jezu and Jesses. I think that Limit has good playmaking potential in every game that he's in, as long as he's on a tank champion. Jesses, on the other hand, is washed up. Should not be playing in a professional League of Legends match. So for that reason, I would completely stay away from SK. If this is a game where SK wins for some reason and I lose money on DraftKings because of it, then so be it. Like I'm not gonna play that. I'm not gonna play them. So then the question is, do I play Schalke? It really depends on what other teams I can combine them with. Since Neon is relatively inexpensive, I'm pretty sure you can get some like interesting double favorite stacks with Neon being your captain. But I'd feel better with them as a secondary stack. So not my favorite game for DraftKings purposes. I could even see some people fading it. But that just kind of goes to what Alan was saying about, you can always kind of justify playing a winner. It's just, do you get the combinations right? So that's all I got for that one.
Yeah, just a quick note. I know the esports department projections have Blue playing this week. I don't know if he's playing or not, but I know that that's what they have for SK instead of 2 hours. Not that it changes things massively. I think they're both kind of bottom 3.
Sure.
All right. Moving on to our second game of the slate. We had the Mad Lions, one of our most expensive teams on the slate, going up against XL. Mad Lions coming to this one 2-1 on the summer split, with XL 1-2. Michael, take us away. What are you doing with Mad versus XL?
Yeah, so Mad Lions is a good team. XL is a bad team. If you just use that logic, then you'll get onto the correct team in this scenario, which is the good one, which is Mad Lions. So Armut is better than Kryze. If they opt into drafting for late game, can Kryze be in a very powerful spot in the late game? Yes, it's possible. Elyoya against Dan. Elyoya is good. Not as good as Shadow, but he's good. And then Dan is bad, so we don't want to play Dan. So if the game just comes down to which jungler is better, I think that Mad Lions will probably win that one. Then in the mid lane, we have Nuke Duck, who's horrible, against Humanoid, who is not horrible. I'm not the biggest Humanoid fan in the world, but he's not Nuke Duck. So he's gonna win that one pretty easily, unless they draft horribly. And then Karzi and Kaiser against Patrick and Denick. They're just the better bot lane. So play Mad Lions. Should you play XL? I think the answer is yes. I'm not saying don't play Mad Lions. I'm saying play your Mad Lions, but then get some hedge stacks in there with XL, because there are definitely scenarios where XL, for one reason or another, gets off a successful gank in the bot lane, or Mad Lions messes up an aggressive play in the bot lane. Patrick starts snowballing. Karzi and Kaiser continue to get focused and like giving up kills and stuff like that. Gives Kryze additional time in the top lane to scale up, and then you get into a late game situation where you have a fed Patrick, a fed Kryze, Nuke Duck being an idiot in the middle of somewhere, and then Dan just kind of standing there. You can win a game like that if Patrick gets ahead early, because that'll just increase the timer. The sad thing is that there are chances that XL gets an early game lead, doesn't put their foot on the gas, allows Mad Lions to just bleed out, and it's a low kill score game. So that's why you can't play XL like in 20% of your lineups. But if you want to take a shot, I could see them in some bizarre game where XL gets 20 kills because Mad Lions just continuously runs at them, even though XL has a better scaling team. Which that would be the right thing to do if you're Mad Lions, by the way. Like if you're losing the early game and you were supposed to win the early game, then you just got to keep fighting them, because it's just going to get worse as time goes on. And for that reason, I also think this is a good game stack spot, because there are a lot of game scripts that force these two teams to just kind of stare at each other around Dragon Pits and Baron Pits and have these big team fights that go relatively even. So that's an interesting one for me. There are not many times that I'm going to want to play XL this year, but I think this is one of them.
Yeah, it seems one of those rare occasions where, well, I guess not rare, but you'll get XL very low ownership, and the ceiling is just massive for them if they do pull out the win. We'll throw it over to you, Alan, on this one. Mad versus XL. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think that that's probably sharp. Like, if I were going to play this game, I think I would want to have the Excel side of things. I'm not really interested in the Mad Lions side of things because when Michael was going through the matchups, he was like, hey, this is a good player and this is a bad player, which means that they're probably just going to win their lanes. And when Excel gets like smashed in lanes, they tend to just kind of like send Patrick into a side lane, turtle it up, try and get Cries, on some sort of late game scaler that, can side lane farm too. And then they just end up losing in 30 minutes with like 12 kills for their opponent. Obviously, Mad Lions is an explosive team that kind of forces you to fight them and will also like extend games when they don't need to just because they are having fun and like they will go to a Baron after they've taken an inhibitor and they don't need to. So it's a little dangerous, like fading Mad Lions entirely. I probably won't do that on this slate. I think that like there's enough good combinations out there because of the explosiveness of the Vitality Fnatic matchup in my mind that I will probably mix some Mad Lions in with those teams, but Mad Lions is definitely not like a favorite play for me. And then Excel, I just can't see any world where they win the game. So I get what you're saying about like if you're going to play Excel like 5% of your lineups year round, like this is probably one of the spots, right? Because if they pull an upset, they are most likely the winning stack. But for me, I don't see him pulling the upset, and I would rather invest in a different dog.
All right, moving on to our third game of the slate. We have Rogue 2-1 versus Misfits, a solid 3-0 for the Infinity Edge podcast. Guys, this one's gonna test your faith in Misfits here. Alan, we'll start with you. What are you doing with this matchup?
First of all, I would love to give a little shine and praise to my adult sons on Misfits Gaming. They were very kind to me last week. Had a good LEC weekend for the first time in what feels like forever. Didn't quite have any takedowns, but was close on quite a few because of the boys from Misfits. So appreciate that. With that said, I do think that this is the spot to go like basically all Rogue. Rogue is a lot better team than Misfits. They are just better in basically every role, I think. Are there ways where Misfits could show up better on the day? Like, could, Inspired and Razork be favored for Razork one day? Sure. But, 9 times out of 10, I think I prefer Inspired, and, you can go up and down the map that way. So it's hard for me to get really excited about my boys Misfits here because Misfits also gives up a lot of kills in their losses, and they are not afraid to take fights from behind, which will force Rogue to hopefully get more kills than usual. Sometimes Rogue takes teams like Misfits that they're clearly superior to and just chokes them out, and that could happen here. But I think that there's enough to like about the matchup for Rogue that I am going to play more Rogue than I usually do, probably around 20% of my lineups.
All right, Michael, we'll throw it over to you. Are you believing in the Misfits versus Rogue?
I think that Rogue is just a better team that plays a similar style. The concerning thing is that if Rogue wins, there's a very good chance that it is extremely low scoring because Misfits will probably draft for like the 25 to 35 minute mark, where even if they're losing, they could have a good team fight and win the game. That's just generally how they play the game. So I'm not that excited about playing Rogue at like a 20% clip. Like I don't think that I can get that much of them in my lineup. And I think that's probably how a lot of other people feel. So I would expect Rogue's ownership to be somewhere in the like 12% range, which like if you want to have a couple of stacks with Rogue being the primary team, I could see it. It's just so, it feels so bad. Like it just doesn't feel good. So the team slot is always in a good spot for Rogue. So if you want to differentiate your team by switching up into the team slot, you can save a little bit of money. Like they're the third most expensive team. So if you have a G2 stack or a Mad Lion stack that doesn't fit with the team slot, maybe you go down to Rogue, save some money there. So there are ways to use their team on DraftKings, but let's see what else do they have. Auto Omne is relatively cheap. I could see you using somebody like that. Inspired, that's probably the way to go. If you're gonna play, you could do one-offs with Rogue. It's going to be really tough to do anything else. Like if you're going to play them in a high percentage of your lineups, you probably want them to be one-offs. If you're going to use them as primary stacks, then you're playing towards like a pretty low percentage outcome. So you don't really want to have that many combinations of them. The better side for DraftKings is Misfits, because you'll get better teams that you can play them with. You're saving more money, and in a situation where Misfits gets an early game lead, Rogue won't necessarily throw themselves at Misfits the entire game, but Misfits allows teams to kind of hang around for a really long time, which might force them into having that like 4th, 5th, 6th dragon fight, additional Baron fights, like that I could see that being pretty good. So I think that for DraftKings purposes, Misfits is the better side when they win more often. But again, you don't really want to play them more than 10% because their chances of winning the game are what, 40%?
Yeah.
Something like that. So if it's 40% and there's 5 games, then even if they win even if they win 40% of the time, they're one of 5 winners, so that's 8%. Can you get over that 8% number and feel great about it? I'd say probably not. So it's another spot where you might want to incorporate them into your like portfolio of lineups, but it'd be a really weird spot to go all in on either one of these teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I actually just looked at my lineups and I ended up I thought the Rogue was cheaper for some reason, but I ended up with like at max 10% in a roll for Rogue, and that was just partially because they projected low through the esports department projections, which you can get access to with the code iEdge.
Yeah. The I guess the last thing I would say is that if you look at the drafts from Rogue, Inspired has played Rumble, Gragas, which was weird, and Rumble. They're blue side. They're going to try to get Rumble, which is fine. Doesn't really matter. I guess Misfits will probably ban it. Misfits has banned Rumble on red side in the past.
Yeah.
So
I've also started to adjust my like percentages for teams based on, or percentage that they win based on what side they're on, because every smart person I know about League of Legends, Pykel included, has mentioned how they expect blue side to be a pretty serious advantage right now. And so that was also another reason why I was like, tough spot for Misfits.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I guess it's something we can look into later on, but I'm seeing Lulu becoming a pretty big priority and actually being pretty strong with the Ezreal. Something to look out for as well if you're betting live on these games.
I think the interesting thing with that is that Misfits on the red side could put themselves into a pretty terrible spot by banning out Rumble, allowing Rogue to play a hard carry jungler like Xin Zhao or something, and then playing an enchanter support with it. Because that's why we're seeing champions like Lulu, is because not only are they good with Ezreal and help them out a little bit in the laning phase, but when you get into the mid game, if you have champions on your team that are like bruiser champions, champions that build either Blood Razor or have Sterix Gauge or something that just gives them like a lot of artificial health, Lulu and champions like Karma just exponentially increase the value of those things, because like that knife's edge that you have to play on isn't a knife's edge anymore. It's just a wide chasm of opportunities for you to sneak out of a fight. So you're right about that. And even if Karma's gone, I think Karma, the focus on Karma being an answer to Rumble has led some teams to try to remove Karma from this situation, and then people have been filling it in with Lulu, which is less effective at doing it, but still pretty good at doing it.
Moving on to our fourth game of the slate, we have Vitality 1 and 2 versus Fnatic 1 and 2. First look at this one for me. I assume I will have both sides of this matchup if I'm playing multiple lineups, because this seems like the game that can be the highest scoring on the slate. I am a little wary on Vitality with their top laner SLT. I haven't been too impressed by him, and going up against Adam, I assume it's going to be pretty disadvantaged, but maybe, Michael, you have a different opinion on this one. So we'll start with you. Vitality versus Fnatic. What are you doing here?
I think that Vitality is probably the right side. They're listed as the underdog, so you're getting additional salary savings. There are some spots where you could play double dogs on this slate tomorrow that look pretty good. I think that SLT has, like you said, they're kind of the main question mark on their team, because Selfmade is a very good jungler. Leader has a very good champion pool for this meta, so like I don't love the player in general, but right now is like probably the best time for them. Period. And then Crownshot and Labrov are good enough and play more of that like late game style where they just want to get into the late game team fights. So the fact that they will be playing Kog'Maw pretty often means that they're also probably going to look for things like Lulu. In their first game against Schalke, this split, they played Lulu in the top lane with Xin Zhao and Viego. So that is just another wrinkle they can add into their lineups, where instead of doing like a Lulu with the intention of buffing up Xin Zhao or Viego, you could play Lulu and then run the Kog'Maw and then have like a Juggernaut composition. So that's another good way for them to potentially win the game. I think that Fnatic is the type of team that we love playing and playing against. So that just makes me like Vitality even more. This is the game that I would focus on for DraftKings purposes. The fact that both teams have somewhat of a realistic chance of winning has depressed their DraftKings prices, because like that's just generally how DraftKings does their pricing, is based off of win percentage. And yeah, I want every single player in this matchup. Get as many combinations of it as you can, or as many as you feel comfortable with. And ultimately, I think that I would prefer to be on the Vitality side than Fnatic. Have the better jungler. Like Bwipo has done a good job, a serviceable job transitioning into jungle, and has been pretty impressive considering that they just started playing it. But I'll take Vitality. The revenge game, Vitality and Selfmade.
Good points. We'll move it over to you, Alan. Vitality versus Fnatic. What are you doing here?
I think that Michael covered it pretty well. I would say that I probably prefer the Fnatic side just for blue side advantage, but I don't think that like it's really really close. Like I think it's a straight coin flip, and so it's the top rated game for the esports department projections. It is two teams that seem to be pretty explosive, although Vitality's first game was really slow, but then they showed some tendency to scrap, and like we know enough about the players to know that it's probably going to be a pretty bloody team. And then Fnatic is obviously just like the breaker of every slate on both sides of their games. They either win or the team that plays them typically wins. So I could see ownership being pretty high on this game, but I don't really care. I'm down to just try and match the field by playing both sides at probably, over 20% of my lineups. And yeah, combinations with every single player in the game, I think, is how I ended up. So I think it's a really, really good spot. The one thing that's nice about Vitality is that you can get them as captains in a lot of different lineups that look really, really good. Like you can get leader captain, crown shot captain, and self-made captain in really, really good lineups with like G2 and other stuff like that. So that's probably going to be a somewhat popular way to go tomorrow, but it's also going to be popular because it's probably going to win. So I will definitely play those lineups too. and yeah, I think this is the game that kind of breaks the slate, as they say.
Yeah. The other thing that I would mention is that this might be a very interesting game to watch from the draft perspective because both of these teams are placing a high value on Kog'Maw. So if my prediction is correct and that we're transitioning into more of a late game meta with champions like Kog'Maw or Jinx being like the focal points of a lot of these team compositions, then if we see Jinx versus Kog'Maw, it'll be potentially like a super late game spot, which is where you get the best DraftKings scoring. The flip side of that is if you know that one team is going to pick Kog'Maw, then you can play something more aggressive, like Tristana in the bot lane, or you can try to play Varus, which Rogue did successfully against Vitality, because you basically take the landing phase, try to build up as big of a lead as on Kog'Maw as possible, so that you're just strong enough to win like a few team fights around these important objectives and force the like game deciding team fight to have the Kog'Maw playing from behind, which his relative strength is going to be very high. It's just you need to play, you need to play better if you're in that situation as the Kog'Maw team. But you always have outs, and that's like why you'll see like T1 when they had those Aphelios compositions where it's like everybody just focus on the Aphelios, he'll figure it out, just don't worry, he'll carry us. That we're losing to an Infernal Soul because we gave away all the dragons, but Aphelios can still win, and like they make it look very close even though maybe it's not so close. So maybe Aphelios makes a comeback too. I think he's getting buffed again. But that's where I think the meta's going, is those hyper carry, the hyper carry meta.
Yeah, we did see some Thresh Aphelios lanes, I think in the LPL this morning. So maybe he's making a
Isn't
comeback.
Aphelios getting buffed again? Isn't he getting buffed again, or was he buffed on like 11.12?
Not 100% sure. Don't want to throw out false information, but I
I
would
do.
like some more. I would like some more
20%.
200 years, 200 years memes coming back would be glorious. As long as Stick Stay doesn't play him, because yikes. But moving on to our fifth and final game for Friday, we have G2 2-1 versus Astralis 2-1. Alan, these two top tier teams with the same record, who do you got?
All right, so obviously I have G2. I think that they're a way better team than Astralis. I don't think I'm going to waste anyone's time with that. I will be playing G2 in a good portion of my lineups, but like Michael's argument about the Mad Lions game, I do think that this is a spot where you could get away with playing a little bit of Astralis, and I probably will try to, because the ownership is going to be very, very low, and I kind of like the way this Astralis team plays, to be honest with you. Last season I hated them more than anything. This season I kind of like it. I like that they're trying to buck meta, trying to play just what fits them, like Zanzara was playing Trundle. He's not going to be a guy that plays the meta junglers very well, in my opinion. He could probably play Xin Zhao pretty well, but his Rumble was weak. And you know, they play to their strengths, which is White Knight playing a carry top, and could Wonder overextend 3 times and have, you know, White Knight get a massive lead and then they can't deal with him on some sort of carry champion? Yes, that is a script I've seen G2 do a lot of times. And so if Astralis can somehow hang on the rest of the map, then I think that that's a way that they can win the game. And Astralis also seems to be a team that's just willing to fight. Like, they know they're not very good. And so they play the game that kind of increases just increases the range of outcomes, right? Excel thinks they're good, even though they're really bad. And so they just turtle every game into their base and lose. But Astralis will actually, you know, try some things that may make them look worse, but is actually a way to win the game. And so that's why I think that playing, you know, a tiny bit of Astralis here, like 1 out of 20 or 2 out of 20 type of lineups, is not a bad idea, and I think I will be doing that. But I will also be playing G2 as primary and secondary with the Vitality Fnatic game. All
right, moving on to you, Michael. Round us out here, G2 versus Astralis. What are you doing with this game?
Sure. So White Knight has played Lee Sin in all 3 of their games. I think that White Knight will not get Lee Sin in this game. Zanzara has played Trundle twice and Rumble once. I think Trundle is a very good champion right now, especially if you have a jungler who can actually carry a game, because Trundle could be a Divine Sunderer user. Like I can play Divine Sunderer Trundle in my elo. I would not be able to play it at the professional level, and I don't know if it's necessarily the best build at the professional level, but a player like Kanavi would be able to pilot Trundle in that way. Trundle is also going to be a champion that we see a lot of if we get into a hyper carry meta, so I think that would be nice for Astralis if they had a hyper carry player on their team. Jeskla is not a player that I would want to play around really. Magic Felix can play the Akali, which is going to be an important champion here. I don't think that I can play Astralis. The only way that I would do it is because of the G2 narrative, where they always have a chance to just throw away a game. But my limit is probably like one Astralis, or not one Astralis lineup. My limit for number of Astralis lineups would be the number of other teams that I want to use as primary stacks, because if I think that Vitality, Fnatic, and Misfits are all in potentially good DraftKings spots, then I would want to have one Astralis lineup with each of them, just in case that kind of works out, because you don't want to say to yourself, well, I'm only playing one Astralis lineup, but I'm going to do it with my Misfits lineups, and then you like have one Astralis lineup, and then the Fnatic one is the one that hits, and then you just feel bad. You really, I feel like, just have to make that
Been there.
decision. Yeah.
And they're done that.
Yeah. So I think that if you are going to play Astralis, just play them the way that you're supposed to, with multiple lineups, even if it bumps up your percentage a little bit too much. I'm not comfortable with that tomorrow against G2, so I will not be doing that. But if you're playing Astralis, that's the way to do it.
I think that makes sense.
That sounds pretty good here. Do you guys have any other closing thoughts on this slate?
No, I think I think we basically highlighted that. I think you want to get as much of the Fnatic Vitality game as you can.
All right.
Yeah. Who's your favorite team? Who's your favorite team?
I think Fnatic ends up being my most owned. I struggle calling them my favorite because they do so much stupid shit. But as far as DFS goes, I think Fnatic's my favorite team tomorrow.
Yeah, I think mine's Vitality. I think Vitality and G2 are the 2 teams that I'm kind of excited to play. Fnatic is a team that I feel like I have to play. Misfits is a team that I feel like I have to play. Mad Lions feel like I have to play. So depending on how many lineups are run out there, I'll probably just do Vitality G2 stacks and see if I can hit with that.
All right. Good information all around. We're going to hop over to the LCS. I admittedly did not see many of the games from last week. I was out doing other things, unfortunately. So do you guys kind of want to do a quick rundown of like your overall thoughts for last week on the LCS? We can start with you, Alan.
Yeah, you're asking me to remember last week right now?
Really quick.
I thought that FlyQuest looked pretty good, better than a lot of folks expected, although then I looked at their underlying gold numbers, and they do not look very good to me. I think Cloud9 is still the best team in the league. 100 Thieves is probably a close second. Team Liquid is a complete disaster. It seems like they have some sort of internal conflict. Jensen has to play playmaking champions now, and he's horrible at it, and it's awful to watch, and I hate it. TSM's pretty good still. Golden Guardians is I think like better than I expected. CLG seems to be having some sort of behind the scenes issue as well, and they were really, really bad last week. I don't know what's up with them. If they are going to make a comeback, I would like for them to make a comeback, because that would be an easy way to get away from people this week, but I have a feeling that CLG is just kind of doomed at this point. Michael, help me out.
I agree with almost all of that. I just posted a video on my channel about my thoughts up until this point in the season, and like gave a little bit of my opinion on what the meta is doing. But ultimately, the narratives are way too simple right now. It's like C9, TSM, 100 Thieves, Team Liquid are good teams. Dignitas, Evil Geniuses, Immortals are the next tier. iQuest is a question mark, but is probably in that second tier. And then you have Golden Guardians and CLG who are just bad. CLG, in my mind, has good upside, especially for DraftKings, because even if they don't necessarily win a game, they always manage to find themselves in like 20 to 15, 20 to 16, 20 to 17. There are chances that like in that spot you get the right two players from them in like a 4-2-1, and it gives you some salary savings, allows you to play the massive favorites, and as long as you get the right two players that have managed to have a good scoreline in a loss, like you can win tournaments like that. I do think they'll win. I do think that they'll turn it around. And win some of these matches somewhat convincingly, but it's just going to depend on them matching up against the lesser teams. Like that's who they're going to beat, and then people are going to be like, "Oh, they've won 3 games in a row against 3 of the other not good teams in the LCS," and then it's like, "Well, we knew they could do that." So it's just going to be a spot where you have to try to find when CLG is under-owned for one reason or another. But I think most people like playing CLG because of the game scripts they will often find themselves in.
All right.
But we'll get into other specifics about these teams, like when we're talking about their matchup.
For sure. I just wanted to do a quick overview there. Thank you both. Moving on to our first game of Friday, we have Cloud9 4-2 versus Evil Geniuses 2-4. I'm very not impressed by this EG team. I think they have multiple problems. Mainly Jizuke in the mid lane, maybe Svenskeren in the jungle. Yeah, I don't know. I think EG just takes this one, but Alan, maybe you have a different thought. Cloud9 versus EG. Who do you got?
Well, I think that you meant to say that you think C9 just takes this
C9
one.
takes it, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that C9's on the blue side. Evil Geniuses has been massively inconsistent. I think that C9 is better in every role. Top lane, I think at this point in their careers, I'd probably take Fudge. I definitely take Blabber over Svenskeren, take Perks over Jizuke. Take the bot lane of C9 over the bot lane of Evil Geniuses. That's probably the closest one, but I think that Vulcan's a better player than what's that guy's name? I just lost it. Used to be on FlyQuest. Ignar, thank you. and then it's 2 inexperienced 80 carries who I think are probably about equal. So yeah, I think that Cloud9 is just a much more well-rounded team, and I think it sets up as a really good Cloud9 DFS spot because, you know, Evil Geniuses is a team that scraps. We know that. They were the bloodiest team last season. They haven't been the bloodiest team this season, but I think it's coming, and Cloud9 is definitely the team that's gonna, you know, force them into small skirmishes, force them into fights. So I would play only Cloud9 from this game personally because I think that Evil Geniuses is going to end up being pretty owned for an underdog just because they're playing against Cloud9 who gives up a ton of kills, and people think of Cloud9 as a variant team right now. I don't think Cloud9 is very variant. Actually, I think they're just the best team in the LCS by a pretty wide margin, and I think that shows up this week.
All right, Michael, we'll throw it over to you. Cloud9 versus Evil Geniuses. Who do you got here?
Yeah, I do agree that C9 is the best team in the league. I was saying that before the season started. For those of you keeping track at home, I think you know what I'm insinuating when I say that, but I didn't say it, so I'm not that bad of a guy.
No, it's okay. I've definitely shifted after Alfari, the best top laner in the history of the LCS, left Team Liquid. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't know that was going to happen? Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. So Evil Geniuses, I
pause
agree.
right there. Did he actually? Is he done now?
So they said he's not coming back until like July something. So it feels like it's over. It feels like whatever happened is irreparable.
All right. Ghost just missing fucking everything this last week. All right.
Well, okay, so they said that on the Dive podcast, that LCS one that they put out with like the commentators. So I
Yeah.
figure that they are telling the truth.
Yeah. I think that the TSM video that they made was like hilarious with Spica. They were saying how like Spica was going to get benched because he was like running around like abusing people.
Yeah,
I think it's funny that they made that video, but they probably have information that we don't have like that we don't understand or know. And maybe there was like an actual blow up with Alfari and these other people. I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. I don't know anything about Alfari. But why else would you make the video that way? Like they're playing into a meme, which might be everyone's misperception of what happened, or maybe they have inside information and understand what actually happened.
yeah,
A small sprinkle of truth in that video, you think?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Not terrible acting by Spica either. Like usually those are really cringeworthy because the acting is just awful. But Spica, he held it up.
Yeah. So with C9 and Evil Geniuses, I think that this is a potentially fun matchup to watch because Evil Geniuses is willing to fight you. My concern is that Evil Geniuses will also consider doing the split push stuff, which LeBlanc is back in the meta. So as long as they don't blind pick LeBlanc, I think that's a very good option for Jizuke. Rise is very high priority for a lot of teams right now. We saw it multiple times in the LPL yesterday. So that's another very good one for Jizuke. Jizuke always has his pocket picks that he's willing to choose. They were baited into picking Gwen against 100 Thieves, and 100 Thieves had a good matchup into it. I don't think that they'll fall for that trap again. I also don't think that they'll give it away. So it's like a weird Gwen spot because C9 will play it. C9 will play Viego. Evil Geniuses will play both of those champions as well. So the question is really, are you playing Evil Geniuses? I think you kind of have to, especially if you're running out a lot of C9. Like if you're thinking to yourself, I really don't want to play C9 as much. I don't think that it's going to be a bloody match. It just turns into some kind of split push game. I think that's possible. I think that's definitely possible. But the way that Evil Geniuses has been drafting in their victories makes me think it's less likely that it's a split push game. Danny's been playing a lot of Ezreal, which is a very strong champion in general, but I don't think it's the best champion for Danny and for Evil Geniuses to carve out winning chances against C9. So ultimately, Evil Geniuses makes more sense in my mind as 5% where you get a couple of them with primary stacks. Because if they're relevant, it's because they won. If I'd be surprised if it was like 20 to 15 and like a game stack wins. That I just don't see that being what happens tomorrow. So mostly just C9. If you want to scratch off Evil Geniuses, I get why you would do it.
All right, moving on. Excuse me. Moving on to our second game of the slate. We have Team Liquid 3-3 versus FlyQuest 3-3. Michael, take us off with this one. TL versus FlyQuest. What do you like here?
Sure. So you always have to play the team against FlyQuest. That just so happens to be Team Liquid in this scenario. It's a good spot for Team Liquid. It's one of the only times that I'll be somewhat excited to play Team Liquid. They had another good spot recently. I'm trying to see. Against Evil Genius, it was 17 to 24. They lost that one. And then Team Liquid against Dignitas was another potentially good spot. 17 to 7. So do I want to play Team Liquid? I would probably limit myself with my Team Liquid exposure to like 15%. The fact that it's FlyQuest makes you want to play more. I just don't think that's a good idea. And then could you play FlyQuest? FlyQuest got absolutely dominated by Cloud9. They managed to beat TSM, and then they lost to Golden Guardians. So the public sentiment is going to be pretty low on them. I think it is a good spot to get like 10% of your FlyQuest exposure. But that's about it. I don't think that there's no League of Legends reason to play FlyQuest. There are DraftKings reasons to play FlyQuest and ownership reasons to play FlyQuest.
Moving on to you, Alan. Team Liquid versus FlyQuest. Are you taking your FlyQuest boys?
Yeah, here's here's one more reason to play FlyQuest. A little bit of narrative reason to play FlyQuest. Something stinks with the Team Liquid situation. I don't know what's going on, but like some of their late game team fights against, I think it was Immortals, I can't remember, but like it really looks like Jensen is playing in a different house and not talking to the team. Like it was brutal to watch. The game that he played Viego, I can't remember who they were playing. And that just like that always suggests to me that there's some sort of internal issue going on. Obviously, we know about the Alfari one. I would not be surprised if it extends further than that. And so I'm gonna be on a little bit of a Team Liquid fade for a little while. I think that like FlyQuest is a team that you probably wanna end up playing against. I expect Team Liquid in their wins to be playing very, very slow. They clearly are rooting for Jenkins to do well because they want Alfari off the team. Like it was very obvious when Jenkins did well, they like built him up humongously, and yeah, and then when he was bad, they didn't really say anything. So I expect them to kind of baby him, and I expect their games to be pretty slow if they are winning. If they get behind to FlyQuest, then I think that's where the game gets a little more possible to have some kills. So I will have some FlyQuest lineups for sure. I will probably fade Team Liquid altogether.
That is a good point about the top lane stuff, because if you're FlyQuest and you think that you have the advantage in Licorice against Jenkins, then you would want to play through top lane. So when you're attacking their top lane, you would expect Team Liquid to attack the bot lane, and that would make me think there are going to be less kills in the game, because it's so obvious what these two teams, like, their first level of thinking should be.
Sure.
So you would see what's the so if FlyQuest is focused top side and Team Liquid is focused bot side, then the Dragon advantage should go to Team Liquid regardless of what side they're on, meaning red or blue. Tactical and Tactical should be in a good spot to get a lot of kills. Core JJ should be in a good spot to get a lot of assists. In the mid lane, is Jensen going to be coming down? Jensen could be coming down. So like 4-man dives bot lane around the 8-minute mark for like Rift Herald trades and stuff like that. I think all that makes a lot of sense to me. Do I expect Johnson and Dreams to just die in that situation? Probably not. I think that could significantly limit the upside in this game. Because like if you're FlyQuest and you're allowing Johnson and Dreams to continuously die under bot tower while you're making top plays, that's just like a fundamental breakdown of communication and would be like kind of pathetic, which is possible. But that does scare me. Maybe this is one of those games where it's just like super low scoring, because Team Liquid and FlyQuest both get the scripts that they want.
Okay. Moving on to our third game of the slate, we have TSM 4-2 versus the Immortals 3-3. I don't have too much information on this one. Alan, take us away here.
I think it's a decent spot for like an Immortals upset. Like I could definitely see Immortals winning the game. They are one of the better early game teams in the league so far, and TSM has always just kind of sacrificed the early game as a rule. As far as like talent goes, I definitely prefer TSM, but I just don't think that the game is set up really well for bloodiness. Like I think that both of these teams kind of tend towards more of a scaling look. They both can play all of the power picks. It feels like Immortals is on the blue side, so they probably get at least one of those power picks, or they get the first shot at it, which makes me like the upset a little bit more. But it's not really a game that I'm looking at as like a big part of my DraftKings. I probably just limit exposure to this one. If I'm going to play, I think it's going to be Immortals in like some double dog looks or Immortals with C9. But TSM probably ends up a full fade for me here. And if they get a ton of kills, then I just accept that.
Okay, moving on to you, Michael. TSM versus Immortals. Break this one down for us.
Yeah, I think it's a better DraftKings spot than you do. So that's I guess that's just the difference that we have in this one. I think the fact that Power Vivo can play LeBlanc now very good, especially on red side, because LeBlanc you can't really just blind pick it, but they should be leaving it open for fifth pick. That's a very good thing for TSM. In the jungle matchup, teams have started banning away Udyr from TSM, which is okay, or like they'll first pick it away from TSM. I don't like TSM when they have Udyr, so that's fine with me. If you get Spica onto, they're probably not gonna let the other team have Rumble. Let's see. That's really what it comes down to for me.
Thought
is
process.
Well, I'm just trying to think through like what are the chances they're probably not going to get Udyr because they're not blue side, and teams don't like it when TSM gets Udyr because it allows TSM to play more of a control style game. On red side, you're not going to get Rumble most of the time, so either the blue side is going to ban it away from themselves, which is pretty stupid, or they first pick it because a lot of teams are first picking it, which means that the blue side would be banning stuff like Karma instead.
Yeah, there's no way they ban it away from themselves. Xerxes carried like multiple games on Rumble already this season.
Okay, sure, exactly. Yeah. So the first 3 games he played Rumble or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so they're gonna probably get Rumble and ban out Karma. That might leave open something like Viego or Gwen, which is kind of interesting. But I don't think TSM has played Gwen yet, have they? No. They've been banning it.
Yeah. Just a quick note while you're talking here too. So Immortals is like at 15 deaths per loss right now, and TSM is at 16 kills per win. So that was a big part of my like, I don't see this game getting super bloody, but obviously, it's 6 games into the season.
Yeah, it's more of like a spot. Like, I think that Immortals is kind of convinced that they can be as good as these other teams, but it's not that they are going to try to like outscale you and like be very passive. I feel like they kind of bring the fight to teams pretty often. Especially if they're in like a 50-50 jungle matchup, which I think should be pretty easy for them to get. So how else could it go? So if TSM bans Rumble, give away Xin Zhao or Udyr. That's tough. That's where I think things could go wrong. Where is my phone going off and you can hear it?
It's okay. We can't hear it.
Okay, that's fine. So that's kind of what I would be concerned about. I think if this game is like bad for DraftKings reasons, it's going to be because of the jungle stuff. That's really what I'd be focused on. I think that I would be willing to take that risk though. I was looking at some of those other games because right when you said that you thought it was going to be a bad DraftKings game, my instinct was like I actually thought it was a good one. The reason why I could see TSM's ownership being depressed is more because Dignitas against Golden Guardians is a spot people will probably want to get. 100 Thieves against CLG is probably a spot people want to get. C9 against Evil Geniuses is a spot that people want to get. Team Liquid against FlyQuest is a spot people want to get. So even just from that angle alone, I'd want to play TSM as like a favorite that is going to be under-owned. So I don't even need a lot of those other reasons, So it's like, can you get 20% TSM in your lineups and feel good about it? I think so. We haven't seen a huge performance from them yet, but it's everybody gets one. Everybody gets one. So I think this is a good spot for that.
Yeah.
I get the apprehension though.
Yeah, I think that's interesting actually. I hadn't considered that TSM is probably going to be the least popular favorite on the slate. That makes me like TSM a little bit more. But I would definitely still play some Immortals too.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our 4th match of the slate. We have those Golden Guardians 2-4 versus Dignitas 3-3. Dig's looking like they're the 3rd or 2nd most expensive team on the slate in certain positions. which is pretty surprising. I don't know if Golden Guardians is just going to run it down or if they're just going to turtle here, but we'll give it over to you, Michael. Golden Guardians versus Dig. What are we doing here?
Play Dig, fade Golden Guardians. Don't even think about it. I think that's really the way that it goes. So if you are going to play Dig, you'll have to play them with Evil Geniuses. You'll have to play them with FlyQuest. You'll have to play them with Immortals. You'll have to play them with CLG. I'd be somewhat surprised if you can get like Dig plus other favorite, even in the jungle spot. That's probably going to be tough to fit together. But whatever team fits is the team that you want to play them with. The other favorite that fits. I would expect there's not many of those that are available though. So then you need an upset to happen. The best chance of an upset is Immortals, but I don't really like that. Because think about it, it's the other underdogs are plus 240, plus 270, plus 260. Immortals is plus 170. And we don't love the Immortal spot for DraftKings. So you really need one of those other three spots to hit, which is possible, but that causes the number of Dig lineups that you need to have to be pretty high.
It's the LCS. Anything is possible.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 18. Because like if you're playing 50 something lineups, then you can probably get Dignitas to like 40% of your lineups. But you don't want to do that, right?
I certainly don't.
Yeah. So if you're going to cap out at 20%, then you'll probably get between 3 to 6 combinations with all the other underdogs. So that's between 10 to 20 lineups. So that's kind of the stand you have to make. If you're max entering, you need to play between 10 to 20 lineups with Dignitas, depending on what underdogs you think have an actual chance of winning. Or if you think none of the underdogs have a chance of winning, then you have to stack them with all the favorites that fit. And I think that would drive down the ownership, or that would drive down the number of lineups you have to play considerably, because DraftKings likes to get rid of the double favorite lineups when they can.
All right, moving on. Oh, or am I stupid? Golden Guardians versus Dig. Moving on to Alan on this one. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think Michael covered it. I don't see a world in which Golden Guardians is better than Dignitas. Dignitas seems to always beat the teams that are worse than them and lose to the teams that are better than them. So they're not even a team that I get really excited about playing an underdog against. Even though, you know, their games can go longer and therefore have like higher scoring, I just don't really see how Golden Guardians does it against them. So the question is like, what happens when Dignitas is priced this way? Because they are priced, you can't really play them with the other favorites. Like I was just looking, like the best you could do is like a top captain with 100 Thieves, essentially. Like you can't play them with Cloud9 at all.
Wow.
You can't play them with Team Liquid. I mean, you can play them with the team slot captain.
Do you play support C9 with?
From what I just saw, no, you can't. So, and same with Team Liquid too. So that makes me go, okay, is anyone going to play Dignitas tomorrow? And so then that underdog thing starts to get a little interesting, because you're like, okay, could I see FlyQuest beating Team Liquid? Yes, I said that earlier, right? So Dignitas FlyQuest is definitely a lineup I'll run out there. Dignitas will just be, which is insane to say, but Dignitas may just be my safe favorite that I stick with underdogs tomorrow. And that is a sentence I've never ever said about Dignitas before, ever. But that is the power of the Golden Guardians.
Yeah, I think the way when you were talking about it right there, that makes me want to play TSM even more with Dignitas, because you can probably fit TSM Dig with like jungle captain or top captain, and you get two favorites where if all of the favorites win, just 2 out of the 5 being Dig TSM, like that happens every once in a while, where you just have enough combinations of those two teams where as long as they both win, you'll have a lot of lineups that cash, and then if they manage to be the two best teams on the slate, then your chances of winning are very high.
Wait,
if they both win and they're both the highest scoring teams on the slate, then your chances of winning a slate are very high.
I may have just gave bad information.
Oh.
I was using the optimizer with 0 projected points in it. So let's move on to the next thing, and I will come back to Dignitas on what you can and cannot play them with, because that was theoretically something we may need to completely erase.
You got
Well,
That's what you
moving
come
on.
here for, baby.
Top tier analysis from the esports department.
Oh, the last thing I was going to say is that in situations where Golden Guardians is beating Dignitas in the early game, Dignitas will probably draft with like late game outs just in case they lose the early game so that they can outscale them. So like things like Gangplank, things like Karthus, those are very likely to happen tomorrow, and that is going to let Dignitas turtle without contesting all these objectives, which is going to depress the number of kills Golden Guardians can get. So that makes me want to play Golden Guardians even less.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds like leave your Golden Guardians at home, pair your Dignitas with some dogs that you like, if you can afford to play them, that is. Moving on to our 5th and final match of the day, we have 100 Thieves 5-1 versus CLG 1-5. This one seems pretty cut and dry. 100 Thieves all the way. Your problem here is that they're the second most expensive team and most expensive at 80 carry. But my question is, are people just going to jam a one-off Sumsday here because he is the he's the 4th most expensive top laner, which seems quite odd. So Alan, we'll start with you on this one. 100 Thieves versus CLG. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I think that people will definitely try to jam a one-off someday. They'll probably just try to play someday captain with other favorites as well, for sure, if he's that much cheaper. I will go back to what I said before. So it was a lie. You can play Dignitas support captain with Cloud9, and you can play Dignitas jungle and support captain with Team Liquid. So that probably makes Dignitas a more popular play, especially that jungle captain route, and therefore I think it kind of makes me like Dignitas a little bit less. But I still like them in the context that we were talking about, where it's where they're more stacked with dogs. Anyway, back to the 100 Thieves CLG. I think it's like unavoidably a really good 100 Thieves spot. Like CLG is the team that you kind of get excited about playing against in DraftKings so far. I think that 100 Thieves is way, way better than CLG. Are people going to play CLG still? I kind of have my doubts, but maybe they will because it's 100 Thieves and they think that the team's variant, or they think that CLG is better than they've showed so far. I'm hoping that's true because I would way rather just fade CLG altogether. I would be very curious to hear what your guys' thoughts on that is, because if CLG is going to, get in like 10% of lineups, then I definitely want none of it. If CLG's in like a very small percentage of people's lineups, then I'm kind of interested in CLG just because the talent is there, right? They have veterans who have played well in the past. Now, have they played well recently? Not really, not any of them. But, there's something too that says like veterans can't play this bad for that long. And so I think for CLG side, it really depends on what you think about their ownership. If you think it's going to be minuscule, then I would try to get a little more CLG. If you think it's going to be 10%, then I would stay away entirely. And then 100 Thieves, I'm just going to try and match the field with like a 20% clip and mostly play them with underdogs. And then if you can get anything that looks good with Cloud9, I would also run that out there, even though it's going to be the most popular construction. It still doesn't change the fact that it has a high percentage win rate as well.
All right, Michael, we'll move on to you. 100 Thieves versus CLG. What are you doing with this matchup?
I want to play CLG, but I think that just looking at the pick bans from this, I think that 100 Thieves is going to play Kaisa. I think that CLG is going to play Ezreal, and that's bad for the Ezreal side of things. That is scary. I think that there are a lot of issues that CLG has right now. When they win, they will be a very important DraftKings team. So if you're okay with losing a slate because you don't have any CLG, I think this is a fine spot to fade them. If you're the kind of player who's always willing to just throw out a couple more lineups for the hedge to still give yourself a chance at first place, I get that too. Would 100 Thieves be able to play slow enough against CLG to make a bad win? They have a 13 kill win. They have a 19 kill win against Golden Guardians, and they have a 17 win against TS, or a 17 kill win against TSM.
That makes my inclination no to answer your question, because like, oh, they have a 13 kill win against Evil Geniuses though. That's kind of interesting because Golden Guardians and TSM are two teams that I feel like are bad to be winners against, and they had decent performances in those two.
Yeah, the game against Evil Geniuses was a Rumble game. I could see that. I could see that happening. It's tough. You're gonna feel obligated to play 100 Thieves because of the matchup against CLG. They're a team that's most likely going to win. So at the lowest you can justify playing them is probably 12%. If you're playing enough lineups where those kinds of things are important to you, like getting relatively good exposures to a bunch of different teams, then yeah, you probably want to play at least 12% of them. If you're the kind of player who's like just picking spots that they want to go all in on and fade, this is probably a better spot to fade because it's going to be very popular.
Yeah. Yeah, what kind of ownership do you think that 100 Thieves gets?
Probably between 20 to 35 in the different roles. Like FBI is going to be closer to the 35% number.
Yeah.
Closer will probably be up higher around that 35% number.
Do you think 100 Thieves is more popular than C9 on the slate?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm kind of leaning that way too, which makes me want to have way less 100 Thieves in the field, because I don't think the matchup is like that kind of matchup. Like C9 is a great DraftKings scoring team. Evil Geniuses last year was the best team to be against. That's like, that's the combination right there, right? 100 Thieves CLG is like closer to, it could go either way.
Yeah. The other thing is, I think a lot of CLG's drafts are just so bad that like the early game goes sideways and then they can't do anything. So that's pretty concerning too. Like they just look like dead in the water a lot of the time, with no ways to get back into the game. So my gut says play some CLG because they're going to be very good in one of these matches in a big upset. I probably don't want to do that against 100 Thieves though, because I do believe in 100 Thieves long term in this split.
Cool. What's your favorite team on the slate?
Probably TSM. But C9 is also in a very good spot. So I think if I had to pick 3 teams to build all of my lineups with, I would get combinations of C9, TSM, DIG, even with like jungle captain, top captain, support captain. Like I would just want to get exposure to those 3, because in that scenario, you're getting off of Team Liquid against FlyQuest, which is just a good spot in general, and you're getting away from 100 Thieves against CLG, which is just a good spot in general. So you're hoping to get some unique roster constructions with the less popular. You're trying to get some more unique lineups with less popular roster construction.
Well done.
But still very high win equity.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like C9 as the favorite, the best on the slate. And then as like the team that I think wins me the slate, I think is FlyQuest. That I will have more FlyQuest than others. And if FlyQuest wins, then I think I win.
Would be nice.
Evil Geniuses.
I knew you were gonna you take the emotional hedge there. That means going all in on C9 tomorrow, by the way.
That is true. All in on C9 for those of you.
Any emotional
I'll-
hedge is just a karma disaster.
And karma is a disaster in League of Legends, I agree. I want to thank everyone for watching today. If you made it this far, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the Esports Department YouTube channel. Also want to thank Michael and Alan for joining me tonight, breaking down both of these slates. You can find Michael at League of Items and Alan at LCS Picks. Don't forget, you can get 10% off a subscription by using the code IEDGE, gain access to all the projections, League of Legends, CSGO. I think Dota and Valorant are still going on. You can get breakdowns for those as well. Very much worth your time and money. Helps support this show. So good luck out there on Friday, and let's go make some money.
Do it.